So first question, while we are on our own for those first few hours or days after a disaster, how do we get information?
Okay, testing. So there are a couple of things that you should be doing. First, have a radio. Have half a tank of gas in your car, because that has a radio. Have a battery-operated radio. And in Santa Monica, we have our own AM radio station that we will be recording Santa Monica-specific messages on where the shelters are located, where any points of distribution are that we're handing out supplies, road closures, that type of information. That AM radio station is 1680 AM. Recommend you put a label on your battery-powered radio that has that, because you put a mic in my hand and I almost forgot what the AM radio station number was. So make sure you write it down somewhere. We also have a system called SM Alerts. That is our mass notification system. It's free. You can get a text message, email, phone call. It also serves as a reverse 911 where we can call any landline or registered cell phone within the Santa Monica area. Sign up. It's smalerts.net. We send out public safety notices, law enforcement activity, major fire incidents, road closures, that kind of thing, habitually. So it's a great resource as well.
Great. So this one says, stay safe, stay in control. Are there electronic versions or videos?
Thank you for asking. Yes, there are. I thought I had this on, but there are, if you go on to the main LA County website /emergency, and they have a whole bunch of pull downs there, you can get the emergency survival guide in up to 14 languages. Stay safe, stay in control. We're getting some of the translations done, but Chinese, Spanish, English, Korean, and Japanese, I think, are the ones that are on there now. We also have audio English and audio Spanish of this. I will warn you, we're having an issue with it because the file is so big. But if that is something that works for you, if that's for people who are low or no vision, and you want that, please let Santa Monica know, and we will get that to them in some format or another.
Can we do a citywide earthquake drill?
Every year.
Sure.
Well, the answer is yeah, absolutely we could do that. We do have an annual drill, the shakeout. But if you really wanted to make this realistic, you'd have to shut the city down to do it, right? But the goal of the shakeout exercise can still be met. And that's a lot of what you heard today about preparedness, about thinking through what the 8, 10, 20 days may look like. Think about notifications of your family, and then also having your supplies available to you and your family members. So I think if the take-home for it is, yeah, we could do a drill like that. We would love to have you participate. But really the message of that drill is just to have something like this on the forefront of your mind. The best alert that we've had, the best drill we've had, was the recent earthquakes that we've had. It's really brought a lot of awareness and a lot of questions and a lot of renewed thought to, it's been a long time. Maybe we ought to take another look at that. So,
just to add to that, this year's shakeout drill is October 17th. Ooh, I love all the pens writing that down. At 10:17 a.m. There's a website that you can register. Please register for that and get credit that you're participating in it. And then hold that drill for your employees. Have everybody do drop, cover, and hold on. Practice, look at where your safe spaces are in your building, what hazards exist in your building, and actually don't wait for us to do a drill. You can do a drill by yourself. And use that as an opportunity to practice your skills and examine your plans.
So this next one is about tsunamis. I understand that there is an emergency text that's sent out to residents, but with a large number of visitors and homeless population at any given time of day or night, would the city consider a tsunami alarm system?
maybe cell
I was
phones.
almost going to mention that to you. If the ground shakes, move out of the beach area.
That's true. Yeah.
Yes. So probably our most likely scenario for a tsunami where we only have 10, 15 minutes to evacuate our beaches is after a major earthquake. So the alert, you might not have a cell phone, right, in that event. So the education that we do is if you have that type of shaking that lasts over 30 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds, it's time to head inland. It's not time to wait for an alert, it's time to head inland. And so that's really our most likely scenario. In other distant source tsunamis where we may have a major earthquake, an underwater landslide, and the tsunami is coming, it'll take hours where we have our lifeguards doing messages via bullhorn. We're putting in a new PA system on the Santa Monica Pier, etc. So we will use every communications tool that is possible, but after that major earthquake, we may not have many options, right? We may not have cell phones or email or landlines. So there's a little bit of common sense that's needed as well. That's why we have all those tsunami signs posted throughout the beach and over by our coastal areas.
So I have several questions now about buildings. First, how do I find out the resiliency rating of buildings in Santa Monica?
That's a good question. So if you're interested in understanding a specific building, a building that you own or that you lease, the best thing to do is to contact a structural engineer who can evaluate the building. There's obviously there is the list of buildings, the 1,600 or so buildings that I showed you a map of. I just got that from a public website. It's available online, so you can see if one of the buildings that you're interested in is particularly vulnerable on that list. But if you'd like to understand more about its performance of newer buildings, of other buildings, the first stop is a good structural engineer, and there are plenty of them. You can visit the U.S. Resiliency Council website at usrc.org and contact us, and we can help you get in touch with engineers.
What can I do if I don't own my own building? What leverage do I have to get the owner to be prepared so my business can be resilient?
Yeah, that's excellent. So a lot of the market demand can be driven from tenants. If an owner of a building or developer understands that their tenants want more protection in their building and are sort of willing to speak with their pocketbook, if you will, that can make a difference. So the first thing is to talk to the owner about the building, try and understand from the owner when the building was built and if it's been evaluated structurally. But there are many tenant organizations in cities throughout, obviously, the state, tenants groups, and really, using that leverage, that power to say, look, we want the owners of our buildings, the landlords, to make their buildings more resilient. It in a sense, it's kind of a bottom-up kind of demand generation. But as I showed you in Tokyo, if the demand is there, the builders will make their buildings better. If there's a value in it, that we've already seen that work on the green side. Tenants of buildings are willing to pay more for buildings that are LEED certified. So if the same push and demand is generated on resilience, which in my mind is just as important for sure, even maybe more in some ways, the developers and the owners will change too.
You may have experience with this too. How does retrofitting affect landmark status, building landmark status?
Right. So obviously there are a lot of historic buildings in California and Santa Monica. I showed you a couple in Portland. If a building is on the state or national register, you can actually get some pretty significant tax breaks for seismic retrofit. And as I showed you that example in Portland, the tax break that the owner of that hotel got paid for the cost of the retrofit. And so most landmark laws, state and national, have an exception for seismic upgrading. Okay, they recognize that you've got to make buildings safe, and just because you have a beautiful 100-year-old building doesn't mean it has a right to not be safe necessarily. So there are exclusions and allowances made, so long as the owner, does a reasonable job in trying to balance historic preservation with the safety. But most of these landmark status laws allow for seismic retrofit because ultimately the safety of people is more important than the historic fabric of the building anyways.
And finally, so not everyone who works in Santa Monica lives in Santa Monica, and that includes first responders. So what happens if an emergency hits and a number of our first responders are at home somewhere else?
The city in general has kind of a mandatory callback. So the assumption is that you're out of town regardless of where you are, because we have folks that live very far away, that you take care of what you can at home and then get into work. And even if we can't get a hold of you. So that's how we staff our EOC. If it's the middle of the night on a weekend and we don't have communications, that's our expectation.
And to add, all California public employees are disaster service workers. So we're obligated to work after a disaster event. Now, if, our employees are living in Rancho Cucamonga and they can't get here because the freeways are down or roads are, they can't drive here, then my expectation is that, or what I would do is show up to my jurisdiction that I live in and say, I'm a city employee, I'm a disaster service worker, how can I help my own jurisdiction that I can get to? And providing service in that manner. But we do take that into where people live into consideration in our staffing of our emergency operations center. We also have procedures where, especially for our first responders, they have to stay on and provide service immediately after a major disaster event. They're not just released. If the earthquake happens at hour 11 of their 12-hour shift, they're not going home at 12. Okay, so there are those procedures in place as well.
Great. Well, thank you. While I invite Laurel up for a final thought, I'm just going to make one last plug for the survey. If you haven't filled it out, please do so and leave it on your table. And Laurel Rosen will give us a final thought.
Well, really, the final thought is just thank you for being with us today, and I hope this has been inspiring to all of you that you'll actually go out today and make that plan. I do want to thank a few people. I want to thank, again, Optimum Seismic, Ali Sahabi, for being very generous in providing the event and your delicious boxes of food. Thank you. And, of course, to our great panelists. So our partner in crime, Lindsay Call from Office Emergency Management. We could not do this without her. And to Chief Tom Clemo from our fire department, thank you so much. Evan Reis, who gave us really a great insights on what we should be doing in terms of our buildings, U.S. Resiliency Council. And certainly last but not least, our Jeanne O'Donnell from our County Los Angeles Business Emergency Preparedness Management. Thank you. So we will help get links to you. I'll work with Lindsay to get those links out to people who have attended. Please don't forget this Friday, 9 a.m. at the Red Cross. Thank you to the Red Cross who are right here, who are within the room. We do the great work of helping you and everyone else who's in the middle of disaster. Give them a round of applause, please. We have a lot going on with our SMO aid. We need you to be a part of it. We have a good team. We need you on that. We need your ideas. There'll be many other opportunities coming your way that will help you understand what your part is and what your role would be. And then, let's see, last but not least, I just want to go ahead and say, again, the Shakeout, October 17th. Make sure you're a part of that. Thank you for being with us today.